Splatoon now has a grand total of 3 games and 2 DLCs under their belt with 5 total story campaigns. And with all of those different campaigns, they've all been relatively the same. They all put you in this kind of floating obstacle course in the sky and have you complete challenges in a very linear way. And something that I actually was really hoping for moving into Splatoon 3 was a full-fledged adventure mode for Splatoon. I also realized how big it could be and it might have to be something of its own, like its own spin-off game, but still, nevertheless, whether it's its own game or in an actual mode within the next Splatoon for Splatoon 4, we should see some type of adventure mode come to the game soon, because we definitely need one. I kind of want to go through and go back and talk about all the campaigns that we've had up until now and why we need a full adventure mode, because the campaigns that we have been getting have been fun at points, but still is becoming a drag, and the fact that it's getting kind of repetitive. But before we get started, a lot of you watching this right now are not yet subscribed, so make sure you leave a like and subscribe before we get started, and let's dive into the campaign history of Splatoon. So this all starts, obviously, with Splatoon 1, and this is where we got a taste of what to expect from the future of the campaigns within the Splatoon series, where you pretty much just launchpad yourself into multiple different sections of a floating obstacle course, where you'll go from checkpoint to checkpoint, taking out Octarians, and just making your way to the Zapfish at the end of each stage. This is pretty much what every mission consists of, except for the ones that actually put you into a multiplayer map and has you fight Octolings on your way to the Great Zapfish, but ideally the same thing, trying to get to the other side of the stage. This campaign played it very safe, but still, it was a lot of fun to get through, and it was fun to try to blast through the stage as fast as you can and also find the secret hidden scrolls in each level as well, and some levels had some really fun mechanics like invisible blocks or giant sponge blocks that you had to soak in your ink in order to make them grow. There was lots of really cool mechanics, and overall, it was a fun experience, with also some fun boss battles, and in my opinion, one of the best final boss battles in Nintendo games period against DJ Octavio. Then we have Splatoon 2 roll around on the Nintendo Switch, which ideally makes this feel like obviously a direct sequel to the gameplay that we gotten from Splatoon 1, where once again we have floating obstacle courses, but this time it wasn't just always in the middle of the sky in some weird void. It had more locations that actually matched some really cool themes, like you had beach areas with water all below you the entire time, or maybe areas that made it feel like you were at an amusement park or at a nighttime sky. There were some really cool locations, but once again, all those locations were really just focused in the background, where the main stage still had the same gimmicks. You still had ink lines, but this time it changed it to some ink rails that you could grind. It also allowed you to use different weapons besides your hero shot, which I'm still very surprised that wasn't a thing in Splatoon 1. But yes, more weapons meant more unique stages built around those weapons. And yes, there were actual stages that utilized those weapons in unique ways, which was a lot cooler than the first game. Even with these little additions, it still was the same concept. Now, without any doubt, this was way better than Splatoon 1's campaign and just added a lot more mechanics and just felt a lot more fleshed out. You still had your boss battles that you would go up against, and of course, another boss battle against DJ Octavio that was unfortunately pretty much the same exact boss fight from the first game, but a lot less interesting in my opinion. Then Nintendo took this formula and still changed it up drastically by adding something called the Octo expansion, which was the DLC for Splatoon 2, which not only gave the game far more story and deep lore cuts for the entire series, but also added some really unique missions based on the special weapons and different items in the game, which was really cool. Each mission had 2 or 3 different objectives that added replayability, which was really fun to do it in different challenges and unique skill sets. For instance, there were some missions where you couldn't even have a special weapon, you were just left with a sub. There were missions where you had no weapons and you just had to hit buttons in order to make things happen in the background. There were missions where you were just on grind rails hitting targets, and even missions where you just rolled around an 8-ball. Yes, I know a lot of people have nightmares about this one, but it was still very cool. And these missions just offered a new variety that we haven't seen before. It wasn't just about busting your way to the very end as fast as you could. No, it was actually about doing the required task, and it actually changed the way we played. There were also boss battles, even though the boss battles were literally just the same exact ones from Splatoon 2's base campaign, just a little bit harder, and obviously with a new way of defeating them by using a special or a sub, but still, they weren't that interesting. The ending was absolutely phenomenal, where it put away some of the challenges that you would do throughout the entire game and was really just a test of getting to the very end and making your way out of the subway metro, while also giving us a really fun and unique spin on Turf War by incorporating it into a sort of boss battle at the end. Very cool. But with all of this, I still wanted to see something a little bit bigger in scale for Splatoon 3, and as it did add a brand new hub world type of thing where you unlocked areas by having Small Fry, your new companion, go over and just chew all the fuzzy ooze, but still it was jumping in kettles and going into missions and simply doing the things that we have done over and over again. And I'm kind of mixed on this campaign, because where it did take lots of great things from the Octo expansion and brought them back, it also had very simplistic level design, just like it did from Splatoon 1 and 2, where it's these giant floating platforms in the sky and you just busted your way to the very end of the stage. And once again, there were some unique missions, like once again having grind rail missions where you have to hit targets as you're speeding by, missions where you only had to use a special weapon and didn't get anything else, where your special weapon just stayed activated the entire time, and also missions where you had to carefully shoot boxes in order to match design on the other side of the stage, which was kind of done before in Octo expansion. Splatoon 3's campaign was fun, but it did feel like almost a little bit of a step back from what we got in the Octo expansion right before it, which was a little bit of a letdown. Boss battles were also pretty lame in comparison to some of the things we had in the past. You actually fought the brand new idols in the game, being Shiver and Fry and also Big Man, which resulted in only like 3 boss battles in the entire game, and they were all pretty easy and pretty safe to say the least. And yeah, you had another DJ Octavio boss, which was the exact same as the past 2 games. And the final boss was actually pretty cool. It wasn't anything super difficult, but it definitely took the series in a different direction, and I really did enjoy both parts of it. And then that moves us to the DLC of Splatoon 3 being Side Order, which is completely different than anything that we've gotten so far and completely changes the formula and turns the game into a roguelike, which has you going up 30 floors in order to defeat all the gelatins, the new creatures that chase after you, very similar to that of Salmon Run. It's like a Salmon Run but with floors and objectives this time around. You'll have things that you're familiar with, like splat zones and a new take of tower control, and yes, even the 8 balls make a return, but in smaller arenas and smaller levels where you simply only have to get 1 or 2 inside of a designated spot while also fending yourself off from all of the different gelatin that are approaching you. As I did actually have a lot of fun with this game mode, it also got really repetitive and stale very quickly. After I went up the tower at least 2 or 3 times, it started to get old, no matter what weapon I used, especially considering the fact when the game had very limited amount of enemies, very repetitive floors, and also the fact that there was only 2/3 unique bosses in the entire game, and also the final boss that I won't be showing because of spoilers was just very repetitive to fight 12 to 13 different times, going all the way back up to the tower and doing the same exact thing over and over again. So what is the point of this video? Well, Nintendo has even said that Splatoon 1 through 3 is going to be like in its own subgroup, and that this is going to be the last game of the ongoing story that we've been playing since Splatoon 1, so that means Splatoon 4 might start a new trilogy of games, which might also mean a new way of playing a campaign. One of my biggest things that I was just so upset with is that as soon as we saw the reveal trailer of Splatoon 3 and the initial gameplay, and even when you first start the game, it feels like it's going to be a different experience. It almost gives you the feeling of it's going to be more of an adventure mode. You can see the canyons around you, the upside down Eiffel Tower, and just like toppled trains and rocks and so many things to go look at and explore, and it just feels a lot more open than what we've seen. That is until you realize that this is just a training course and you are going to dig into the main city of the Splatland soon and you're leaving this area, which was very painful to find out. I think I'm saying that I think it's not just time, it's been overdue that we finally get an adventure mode of some sort for Splatoon. Just using the weapons that we've had in the series so far and exploring areas, painting up walls or mountains and exploring things, getting collectibles in specific areas. And I'm not talking an open world Splatoon or even an open sandbox Splatoon, but something more linear like Kirby and the Forgotten Land would even be nice. I feel like I always use the Forgotten Land to talk about how a game that's always predominantly been in 2D would look in 3D, but I mean, it's just such a good example. I mean, it's just also very similar to that of Mario 3D World, but just having more of an open area to go around and do things, or just connecting things together. You can still have very similar level design, but just have other outside areas that we can go explore and look at, and maybe like hide different pieces of lore to it and stuff, and show us some remnants of the old world. Like literally the Forgotten Land. It's about a land that has been forgotten and overrun by nature. That's something that would have worked perfectly in a story for Splatoon, which is about the fall of the human race. So to uncover secrets and hidden cities and just have worlds and levels designed around the past from humanity would be so awesome to have in a Splatoon game. We can still have an objective of reaching the Zapfish at the end of the level, but let there be some more open areas for us to run around in and explore and use our weapons. And maybe we can shoot ink up on buildings and climb up and find hidden secrets and stuff. A reason for us to explore levels instead of just having floating blocks and platforms for us to jump on would be so awesome. And I know a lot of people have been saying that this is something that probably would only work on a Splatoon spin-off, and I can see that being the case too, because it might be too in-depth to have something like this and a multiplayer game mode that's pretty much its main purpose for Splatoon. So yes, then at this case, let's just have a Splatoon spin-off then that's focused on single player. Then we can also have multiplayer games, and that way it can kind of stretch each other out. Maybe just have more dev teams working on the Splatoon series. You could have like 2 or 3 years until boom, here's a multiplayer Splatoon. 2 more or 3 years, boom, here's a big campaign-focused Splatoon. And you can keep kind of bouncing off each other. That way you can really focus on multiplayer for the multiplayer games and single player for the single player games. But yes, I truly do love Splatoon, and I love everything that it has to offer, but Splatoon 3 in my eyes is by no means a perfect game. And it's really hard to ever find a perfect game, and I don't think there truly ever is a perfect game. There are some really great things about Splatoon 3 and some really bad things, including its multiplayer, like its maps and some of its recent updates, as you can just ask the community. But even with that said, this is still a very young franchise. I mean, this is only the 3rd game of a franchise that just started about 10 years ago on the Nintendo Wii U. So we're still just getting started, and there's still things the devs are learning. But I'm glad that we're growing and we're just making the Splatoon community become even bigger than it ever was, and it's just so exciting. But when it comes to its single player campaigns, I really hope that we get a little bit more of an ambitious story or campaign, whether it is in the form of just an additional mode or in the form of a spin-off adventure video game. But we're just going to wait and see what Nintendo decides to do, but I'm very excited for Splatoon 4 and the future of the franchise. Let me know in the comments down below if you've been enjoying the Splatoon campaigns, if you want to see something different in the future, or you want to see something just a little bit different than anything that I brought up. Let me know down below. Make sure you leave a like and subscribe before you head out, and like always, I'll see you all on the next one. See you guys.